Hello, everyone. This is Beastly Eel, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the season finale of The Bad Batch. Now, there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it yet, please pause the video, watch it, then come back and see me. Um, so the episode starts slightly before the last episode ends. So we see the destroyers destroying Camino, and they're blasting everything, and the Bad Batch is trying to run as fast as they can to get out of there. Unfortunately, they're not quick enough, and the blasts from the destroyers are destroying everything. They're knocking out the stilts, which then causes the entire complex to fall into the water. So, as the Empire is watching the city sink, the the admiral is standing there watching the entire thing happen, and that's when one of the stormtroopers, who sounds very much like a clone, so I think he's a clone trooper, in a stormtrooper outfit, obviously. But anyway, explains to the admiral that the entire city has collapsed upon itself and is sunk. So he decides that it's done and over with, and that they are to go back with the rest of the fleet. So all the destroyers turn around and take off. So inside Camino, the Bad Batch is continuing to run. The place is destroying everything. So the place is literally being destroyed. Things are opening up, water's rushing in, it's a mess. So as they're running, debris is coming out of every direction. Well, there was a short circuit and forced shut one of the doors. Now, on the other side of the door was Omega in Crosshairs, while the in the robot, and the rest of the Bad Batch was on the other side. So on Omega's Crosshairs and the robot side, um, the water level began to rise. Omega's trying to help Crosshairs. Crosshairs isn't happy. He's finally woken up. He's kind of miserable, like he seems to always be. Omega and the robot team up and actually release Crosshairs, and they both get up. While this is going on, the other members of the Bad Batch are trying to open up the door to get Omega. As they're doing this, water's seeping out, but the water level gets really high. Wrecker opens the door enough to get Omega and Crosshair and the robot inside, and the door shut automatically. So now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do now. Nobody's quite sure exactly what's going to happen, and they're very concerned. So Tech does a scan of the building and basically says that this place is going to collapse in on itself very soon. There's only a few places that are actually habitable for the time being. So they go to the one of the only places that was left, which happened to be their old barracks. So they go inside and they do this little give and take with Crosshairs, and Crosshairs basically saying it's their fault that, they're in this predicament, blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, come on, Crosshairs, let's join forces again. We can be brothers again. And Crosshairs is like, no, I want the Empire. And it was kind of depressing to hear that. They're now trying to figure out a way to escape. Well, Omega noticed that where they landed, where the building, city, whatever you want to call it, collapsed down, right underneath their barracks happens to be the underwater tunnel. So the robot uses his welding ability to open up the passageway, I guess is the best way to put it. It was an airtight seal, so none of the water was seeping in. So they all jump down and they start walking down the path. So they're walking, 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 walking. Crosshairs is very concerned that the place isn't safe because there's a lot of cracks inside the tunnel. Now, for those of you who don't know, the tunnel is completely submerged in water. In fact, I think it's directly at the bottom of the ocean. That being said, they continue on. Um, what they notice is as they get closer to the end, they realize that there are creatures in the water, which I believe they were aware of, but that never was a problem before. So they ask if everything's going to be safe, and Tech's basically like, well, we would be if there was power, but there's no power, so I guess we're screwed. Obviously, he didn't say it in those words, but I'm paraphrasing, of course. So it was this turtle-like creature who was now trying to eat them, cracked the tunnel in multiple areas. So now they're running as fast as they can to get out of there. So they get to the end of the tunnel, and the robot goes up to turn the power back on just enough to cause severe damage to the turtle, and the turtle swims away. Now the tunnel is starting to fill up significantly with water. They are able to get out of it, and the robot closes it up. So now they're inside the head scientist's special lab. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. They find out that the tunnel that they were going to use to get back to their ship was destroyed. There was nothing left of it. Or there was just enough that you noticed that there was one. Um, so now they think they're all dead. Crosshairs makes a comment that this is why we don't listen to a child, blah, blah, blah. There's a few insults between each other, and it was just a lot of just back and forth. Well, after a while, they find out, or Crosshairs finds out, specifically, well, Hunter and Crosshairs, I should say, realize that Omega's older than all of them, and she saw them all grow up. Because her aging wasn't advanced, or wasn't increased. She's a genetic copy of um, Jango Fett. So she ages exactly like he does. So who knows how old she actually is. But anyway, she they now have to come up with a plan to escape. And they know they can't go and swim, but they find these test tubes, the test tubes that had the clones in them at one point. They're airtight. So their idea was to blow up the window, let the water come in, and float up to the surface. Um, so they were claiming that they were concerned about the debris falling down because still there were parts of Camino still coming down. And Crosshairs comes up with the idea that the robot's able to do it, the robot can do it. So they start putting up the charges, they get everything set up. Omega and Wrecker were by themselves, so they each had their own. And then we had Echo and Tech in one tube. And then we had Crosshairs and Hunter in the fourth tube. Now, we are also aware that the robot is running low on power. He's mentioned it before in this episode, and it's starting to be a concern. So anyway, they set the charges, they get inside, everything's sealed and locked. Omega blows up the charges and the water comes in. So the robot is now trying to set up everything so nobody gets hit. Crosshairs and Hunter get hit, and their thing cracks. While he's distracted with them, a huge amount of debris smashes into Omega's thing and actually gets stuck and starts to make her sink. So as the other three tubes are floating up, the robot goes down to save her. Um, the robot sets her free, uses all his remaining power, and unfortunately loses power completely. So Omega is not happy with this, and she lets Hunter know that she's going to save the robot. Hunter basically says, "Don't do it," but she does it anyway, opens up the chamber, goes in. So she grabs him, but now can't get to the surface fast enough. During this time, she's losing air, and it looks like she's passed out. Crosshairs takes a sniper rifle and shoots. Well, first he points it at Hunter, and then aims down and shoots like a grappling hook that captures the robot, which is holding on to Omega, and he brings the both of them up. After he brings them up, he throws the. After he notices all his brothers pointing their guns at him, except for Hunter, um, he throws his sniper rifle back to Wrecker, and they begin to paddle to their ship. So this was at night, so now it's during the day. So apparently it took a long time to get to their ship. They are now ready to leave. Tech basically says we need to get going before the Empire scouts come by to double check the place. They offer Crosshairs to go with them. Crosshair says no. He doesn't want anything to do with them. He's done. He's made his choice. So reluctantly, they all leave. Omega leaves with saying that you're still our brother, no matter what. Remember that. And then they take off. Crosshair stays on the hangar, and I am imagining he waits for the Empire to come if they ever do. That's the end of that part. Then we get to a place that I don't remember seeing ever. Um, I mean, it was just like a quick look, so I'm not quite positive. We see the head scientist from Camino be taken out of the ship, and there is a Empire scientist that greets her and basically says, "We're so happy for you to be on board. We have a lot of plans for you." And that's how the season ends. I mean, these last two episodes were actually really good. This episode was a lot of the dynamic between Crosshairs and the rest of the group. We definitely see that Crosshairs is much different than everybody else. Um, he's not quite like them, and we're still not 1,000% sure that he doesn't have his inhibitor chip in him. I know he claims it, but I'm wondering. I don't know. I'm not 1,000% convinced. That being said, what really threw me off was the fact that the scientist was with the Empire, which is making me think because their thought is that Snook. This is very future. Snook was an attempt to clone Palpatine to have another body to suit him, but it was a failed attempt. So I'm wondering if the reason why she's with the Empire right now is for Palpatine to use her to create clones of himself to try to get bodies ready in case he dies. It is unclear. I think we're going to know more in season 2, obviously. But for right now, that's all I got for this episode. I mean, season 1 was really a lot of filler. It wasn't bad. I just felt it was a lot of filler that shouldn't have been there. And like the action was in the very beginning and the very end. And in the middle, it was kind of just like a eh. And because of that, I felt like it was kind of slow. But overall, I think the story arcs between the characters was nice, and I cannot wait to actually see season 2. I'm just hoping that it is not as slow as season 1. I'm hoping they kind of pick up their rhythm in the next season. But as always, if you like the content you see, please like and subscribe below. Other than that, I mean, let me know what you think in the comments. Did you like the season? Did you not like the season? I'm curious what you guys have to say. But for now, this is Beastly Eel signing out, so have a good night.